So welcome to Office Hours. This is the very first sample video, really, to kind of give you guys a feel for what you're getting into. So what's going to happen, we're looking today at a sumo deadlift, and we're going to watch this video over quite a few times. And each time we're going to be looking for something a little bit different. But by the end of the Office Hour session, we're going to have a pretty good feel for what's going on here and what needs to change to really make this an optimal lift. So let's get started. First, we're just going to watch it through to kind of get a feel for what's going on. I mean, might watch it through once or twice. Talk over. Okay. So right now we can see this is a pretty heavy lift, right? This is not something that easy, and this is a good angle for technique analysis because we can see most of what's going on. Ideally, we'd have more than one angle, but we work with what we got. So let's start with the setup. Before we even start to move the bar, for a deadlift, you really need to make sure that you're dialed in at the top. And so we can't really see what's going on the top here, but we can see the position that this person ends up in right before he pulls. We've got a good, pretty stable stance. It looks like it's a little bit wider than shoulder width. You can see his hips are fairly high, which is good when you're pulling sumo. And we're pulling mixed grip here. And it looks like we've got a little bit of internal rotation and maybe a little bit of a rounded back before we start the pull. Now, one of the things, if you read my guide to the deadlift, you know that I'm real big on keeping a neutral spine and external rotation around the shoulders before you even start to pull. So since we can't see a setup, it's a little bit hard to tell what's going on, but generally I find that when people are in this position, what we're looking at right now, it's really, really hard to get that neutral spine and get that external rotation because you've lost tightness, lost a little bit of tightness. Now, it is very possible that there's some mobility things going on here. There might be a little bit of hamstring tightness. There might be a little low back tightness. But for whatever reason, those lats aren't pulled down and back, and the shoulders, the chest and the shoulders aren't open. Case, what we'd be seeing, his head would probably be a little bit higher up, just looking maybe a little bit, couple inches further ahead of him. And his shoulders would be rotated out and down, just like you were setting up for a bench press. And if you're following along at home, what you can do is just sit up real straight, go out so they're open, and see what happens to your chest. That's the position that we're looking for in a deadlift. So let's step forward a little bit and see what happens from here. A little bit of a tension setup, and then he starts to pull. And you can see off the floor we've got a lot of strength, and then it starts to get a little sticky up around knee level, right about there. We start to get a little stick. Okay, so what we're going to be trying to do analysis is trying to eliminate that stick. So let's start with this hip drop right there. Step back just a little bit. See if we can find the exact frame that we're looking for. Right about there. Okay, so this is not his actual pull. This is his kind of a tension pull before he gets started to try and generate a little bit of that tightness that ideally we would have built on the setup. But let's look at this position anyway. All right, we're going to start out with the feet. You can see his feet are rolling out to the side, which, I mean, it's good that you got your weight on the outside of your foot, but you don't want this foot rolling up like that. When you're rolling up like that, you don't have that good tripod position on your feet where you have your weight distributed evenly through the big toe, the little toe, and the heel. It's just not possible. Right now we've got all the weight on the outside of the foot. What that's going to do is take some of the adductors, right, the inner thigh, going to take that out of play. And we see that coming through because look at how deep his hips are. This guy is in a squat position right now, which is not what we're looking for in a sumo deadlift. When you're in a squat position like that, you're essentially taking your lower back out of the game entirely. While sumo is a little bit less demanding on the lower back, we still want to involve that muscle. It's a huge muscle group and a primary mover in both the deadlift and the squat. So let's see what happens after this tension pull, right? So we pick the hips up and drop the hips down, which is good. because when you pick the hips up and drop the hips down like that, you generally can get a little bit more hamstring tightness. But again, ideally, we're getting on the setup. But this is right when the bar starts to break the floor. And you can see right here, right, the plates have just started to come off the floor, but they're not quite entirely off yet. And that's because we've got a deadlift bar, which is also good. So in this position, the hips are a little bit higher. The hips have risen and the shoulders have risen before the bar leaves the ground. That's good, but only because we started out with a position where the hips were just so low. Ideally, we're not starting out with the hips that low. We're starting off in this exact position. Now, what's bad, what you'll see people do oftentimes is they'll shoot their hips up and they won't pick their chest up as well. That's really bad. That's putting you in a terrible position for sumo because you simply can't get your hips and quads into the game effectively. We've still got a little bit over here. We've still got a little bit of that weight pressing through the outside of the foot and not the inside as well. But it's not too bad. Nice open chest position, so he's corrected that. And obviously a nice flat back position. If you see any rounding on sumo, you absolutely know this person's going to start sticking at the top because you have to have those lats locked down. You have to have that lower back locked down if you want to be in a good position to lock out your sumo. All right. So we break the bar off the floor up until here, up until this point, real fast off the floor. Generally, that's not what we're going to see sumo. Generally, if you're in a good position for sumo, it's going to be a little bit slower off the floor and then smoothly accelerate throughout the entire lift. But the reason that we're seeing this fast acceleration off the floor is because look about how far his shoulders are over the bar. If we draw a straight line down, instead of being right in line with his arms, this shoulder is way over the bar. I say way over, it's an inch or two, but what that does, he's now in a bad biomechanical position to lock this lift out. And that's why we start to get sticky right around here. What we want is for those shoulders to be directly in line with the bar. And that way, all you really have to do is squeeze the glutes in order to lock out. Here, we have to really basically do almost a partial stiff-legged deadlift using all lower back to lock out. And that's why when we watch this lockout, you can see it's real sticky. Now, you also should probably have, with a lift this heavy, you should have some baby powder, some talcum powder on these inner thighs and also on the outer forearm, excuse me, because that'll get rid of some of that stick. But the big thing here that we need is to get those shoulders back, and that's going to start at the very beginning. So let's watch again from the start. Bam, nice controlled descent. All right, not there. Okay, so right here, we've got those shoulders over the bar, right? This is exactly where we want. What happens between here and that lockout? What happens where the shoulders end up in front of the bar? Let's watch and see if we can see. Ah, there it is. I might have missed that. We're going to go back and watch in slow motion. If I can figure out how. All right, we're going to go super slow motion, and we're going to watch this and see if we can figure out what's going on. All right? Trust me, it's playing. Okay. Good position there. Hips a little too low. Picks them up. Good. Good. Okay. So now we're off. Now we're a little bit off. What happened, I don't know if you guys could see, but you had a little bit of movement around those knees. Watch his knees as he breaks the bar at the floor. In. And now they're locked out. We need to keep those knees out the entire time, okay? That is coming from the feet. Remember how I said when you've got your weight all over your outside of your foot like this, you can't really get the adductors in play? That's what we're seeing here. Adductors can't work properly, so the weight is on the outside of the foot. Those knees have to come in because the glute medius can't work alone. They can't work alone. They need to work in conjunction with the hamstrings and the adductors, and that's not what we're getting here. So in order to correct this, what I have this person do, start, first of all, when you address the bar, you're keeping the weight on the entire foot. You're distributing equally over the big toe, the little toe, and the heel. And then as you begin the movement, before you even grab the bar, you're twisting your feet out. Feet aren't actually going to move, but you're thinking about twisting the feet out, spreading the floor apart, and feel that good tension through your quads, hamstrings, adductors, and glutes. That entire posterior chain should be tight before you even grab the bar. What happens when you do that, if we go back to the beginning, you're simply not able to get in this position because your hamstrings, your glutes, your adductors are tight. You're not going to be able to get your chest that low. It's going to be a little bit further up. And that is going to eliminate that sticking point. Okay? So you guys can see we really had to break down everything to see what was going on here. But once we did, it's a pretty simple fix, right? This lift is already really clean to begin with. But think about, if that's your sticking point, think about what a big difference those little changes can make on a true 1-rep max. That could easily be 10 or 15 pounds just from making that change. So I hope this was helpful. If you guys have questions, if you have videos you want me to analyze, please sign up for the program. You'll find in the instructions section how to submit your videos. And each week, Dom and I will go through and perform an analysis just like this so that you guys can get more and more and more experience and eventually learn to do it for yourself.